There's a pain we rarely talk about, the pain that comes when someone hurts you on purpose. Not by accident, not because they didn't know better. No, they knew exactly what they were doing and they did it anyway. That kind of pain, it cuts differently. And the desire to make them regret it, to show them how badly they misjudged you, is loud, hot, and real. It's one of the hardest truths to sit with. Sometimes the people who hurt us most aren't villains. They're wounded. That doesn't excuse what they did, but it does explain why they did it. When someone intentionally targets you, belittles you, manipulates your emotions, or turns love into a battlefield, it's tempting to believe you must have done something to deserve it. But the truth is, their cruelty was never about your worth. It was a mirror of their unresolved pain. People who are at war with themselves often start battles with others just to feel some sense of control. Maybe they saw your light and felt small in its presence. Maybe your joy reminded them of the happiness they feel they'll never have. Maybe your boundaries exposed their lack of self-discipline. So instead of facing that discomfort, they projected it onto you. You became the outlet for their internal chaos. But here's what they won't tell you. They saw your goodness, they saw your strength, they saw your softness, and instead of honoring it, they tried to crush it. Why? Because your authenticity triggered something in them they weren't ready to confront in themselves. Cruelty is often a mask, a disguise for deep fear, for powerlessness, for unacknowledged shame. And when someone doesn't know how to name their pain, they try to hand it to you. If they can't heal, they'll try to harm. If they can't find peace, they'll try to ruin yours. But listen closely, you were never the problem. You just walked into a storm that had already been brewing. You were collateral damage in a war they were fighting long before you arrived. So don't internalize their behavior. Don't rewrite your worth based on how they treated you. Instead, see their cruelty for what it truly is, evidence of their pain, not proof of your inadequacy. And the most powerful thing you can do in response, refuse to carry what they refuse to heal. There's a narrative we've all been fed that if you don't clap back, if you don't explain yourself, if you don't fight fire with fire, then you're weak. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Silence isn't submission, it's strategy. And in a world obsessed with loud reactions, silence becomes a revolutionary act of power. When someone hurts you on purpose, they're often looking for your reaction. They want to see the damage. They want proof that they still have access to your peace, your energy, your self-worth. They throw words like knives waiting for you to bleed out in front of them, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, because your reaction feeds their ego. Your pain gives them a false sense of control. But when you go quiet, truly quiet, when you stop defending, explaining, or justifying, you reclaim something sacred, your dignity. Your silence becomes a boundary that says, I no longer owe you any more of me. Not my voice, not my validation, not my vulnerability. Silence isn't about ignoring what happened. It's about rising above the noise. It's about choosing peace over proving a point. Because sometimes the loudest thing you can say is nothing at all. Not because you don't have words, but because you value your energy too much to waste it on someone who already chose to misunderstand you. You don't need to argue to prove you were right. You don't need to speak just to be heard. You don't need to relive your pain trying to get someone to acknowledge it. Some people don't deserve front row seats to your healing, and your silence tells them exactly that. Silence says, I'm done performing, for your comfort. Silence says, I don't need your validation to know my truth. Silence says, you lost access to my inner world. And yes, it will frustrate them because your silence forces them to sit with themselves without your reaction to distract them. They're left to face their own discomfort, their own choices, their own emptiness. And that is how you take your power back. You are not weak because you walked away quietly. You are wise. You are not afraid because you chose peace. You are evolved. You're not defeated because you stopped explaining. You are free. So the next time someone tries to bait you, provoke you, or pull you back into the chaos, remember, your silence is not a lack of courage. It's the highest form of self-respect. Revenge is seductive. When someone wounds you on purpose, when they tear you down, humiliate you, or betray your trust, your first instinct might be to match their energy, to show them that you're not to be messed with, that you can hurt them back, that you can play the game even better. But here's the truth. Revenge might feel good in the moment, but healing lasts longer and it hits harder. Because when you heal truly and fully, especially in front of the very people who expected to watch you fall apart, you're not just surviving, you're thriving, you're turning pain into power. And that's the kind of transformation that makes people stop and stare. See, revenge keeps you tethered to the wound. It keeps your focus on them. It asks you to dim your light just to prove a point. But healing shifts the spotlight. It says, I'm not living my life to make you suffer. I'm living to make myself whole. And when people watch you do that, when they watch you rise from the ashes with grace instead of bitterness, they feel it. They feel it in your joy that they no longer control. They feel it in your boundaries that no longer bend for them. They feel it when they realize your life didn't fall apart without them. It got better. Healing in public doesn't mean turning your pain into performance. It means showing up as your authentic self, even with the scars. It means smiling again without needing to hide your past. It means rebuilding a life you love without ever needing to say their name. It means choosing growth over grudge. And that choice is powerful because the people who hurt you expect silence, shame, or self-destruction. They expect you to retreat. But when you show up anyway, stronger, wiser, softer, louder, they start to feel something they didn't anticipate. Regret. Not because you punished them, but because you became someone they no longer have access to. There is nothing more disruptive to those who tried to destroy you than watching you become someone they cannot reach, touch, or understand anymore. So, no, you don't have to get back at them. You just have to get back to yourself. And do it so boldly, so unapologetically, so beautifully that your healing becomes the story they never get to rewrite. You're not here for revenge. You're here to rise. And rising is louder than anything you could ever say. The world will try to convince you that softness is weakness, that kindness is naivety, that vulnerability is a liability. Especially when you've been hurt deliberately, it feels like the only way to protect yourself is to build walls, go cold, and let bitterness become your armor. But the truth is, bitterness doesn't protect you, it poisons you. And hardness doesn't make you stronger, it just makes you less available to yourself. What takes real courage, soul deep, spine straight courage, is to remain soft in a world that tells you to harden. When someone hurts you on purpose, the easiest thing to do is to become like them, to detach, to shut down, to stop trusting, to say never again, and let your heart become guarded territory. But that's not rising, that's hiding. You rise when you stay soft, not because you let people walk over you, not because you tolerate harm, but because you choose to remain connected to your heart even after it's been broken. Because you know that being sensitive is not a flaw, it's a superpower. It means you still feel, you still care, you still love deeply, even if the world has given you every reason not to. Softness doesn't mean silence. It doesn't mean weakness. It means choosing compassion over cruelty. It means responding with clarity instead of rage. It means standing in your truth without needing to destroy someone else's. That strength most people can't even comprehend. When you stay soft, you don't lose yourself to pain. You don't let trauma rewrite your personality. You don't let someone else's brokenness become your blueprint. You say, you may have hurt me, but you don't get to change me. And that's a power no revenge can match. The ones who rise are not the ones who get even. They're the ones who keep loving with boundaries, who keep giving with discernment, who keep showing up as themselves without apology. You want to make someone regret hurting you? Don't let them rob you of your softness. Because when you choose to remain gentle in a hardened world, your light becomes disruptive. Your presence becomes unforgettable. And your strength becomes undeniable. So stay soft, stay brave, stay whole. Because that softness, it's not your downfall. It's your elevation. When someone hurts you on purpose, they expect the version of you that breaks, the one that cries, the one that begs, the one that becomes small, bitter, and insecure. They're hoping the damage sticks, that you carry their cruelty like a scar you can't hide. But here's the part they never see coming. You evolve. Not out of spite, not to show them, but because something inside you refuses to let their harm define your future. You choose to grow even through the ache. You choose to become more self-aware, more grounded, more whole, not because of them, but in spite of them. And that growth, that transformation, that evolution, it becomes the lesson they never thought they'd learn. They don't get to hear your explanations anymore. They don't get to see your tears. They don't get to sit front row to your healing, but your evolution echoes anyway. In your confidence, in your peace, in the way you walk into a room without flinching, in the boundaries they can no longer cross. You don't have to speak their name. You don't have to post a clapback. You don't have to send a message, because your life, the one they tried to fracture, is now the billboard for everything they lost access to. That's the thing about people who harm others intentionally. They rarely expect you to get better. They count on your silence, your self-doubt, your collapse. So when you evolve, when you elevate, they start to feel the weight of what they did. Not because you punished them, but because they suddenly realize they no longer know you. You outgrew the space they tried to trap you in. Letting your evolution speak is not about revenge. It's about refusing to live small for someone who never saw your worth to begin with. It's about reclaiming your narrative. It's about choosing progress over pain, purpose over pettiness, and growth over grudges. And when they see you flourishing, thriving, free, they'll be reminded of who they could have had a seat beside had they chosen to treat you with respect, but that seat